missing offspring. But now you think you found it. A trove of stolen antiquities was recently recovered from the estate of a corrupt British officer who retired to Spain. The entire collection was donated to the Prado Museum. The collection contains items held by my sect for a century. Sacred books. The crown is there. I know it.
We're back again. Probably a quick one this time, guys. But we will always leave you with information to look up yourself. Do you remember when we used to say it? I think we've said it recently. Don't believe anything I say.
Go and look it up.
Or she says, go and look it up for yourself. And I think that is my main contention with people. My main contention is that people will swear with their whole life on something.
Blind.
They've never looked into anything that they say they believe. They've never looked into the possibility that
it could be wrong.
It could be wrong, or somebody else, or something else other than your
perception
is saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And because I'm
inquisitive,
I want the truth. I've always wanted the truth. If whatever it is, give me the 100% truth. And if somebody else comes to me with something, I will give it 5 minutes and go, okay.
But that doesn't make sense.
You always got a question. I'm just saying, like, I've always said, I don't stay stuck in one thing.
Yeah.
Anthropology, ethnology, science, movies, myths. Because when you get into them, you're like, well, hang on. That's what it says in science.
Yeah.
That's what it says in history. That's what it says in the Bible. That's what it says in the Torah. That's what it says in somebody else's culture.
Yeah.
You'll find that there's so many similarities, and then the thing that you say applies to you applied 5,000 years before your thing said it. You know.
Yeah.
So in the last video I got very angry at the end, and I shall explain why to people that don't understand. I'm brought up in Christianity hard, right? I would be seen as a backslider now from a long time. Backslider.
Heresies.
Backslider, right? And don't get me wrong, I still speak to all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Do I not?
Yeah, no, you
White, black, you know, educated, uneducated, religious, not religious, all of them, because I feel like you can learn something from everyone. You don't know everything.
Exactly. Learn something new every day. If you don't, then it's ignorance.
You get me.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, me. So my thing is this. I'm just going to say it. I have sat down and watched so-called righteous church people be the main instigator of causing contention and problems in people's families. No respect for the pastor's children. What you don't understand is that you're flying monkeys. Go look it up.
Please.
And you know, when I get mad, it's because I've seen people destroy their families, stop talking to their family members. You're not saved and I'm saved. Yeah. That turn their back on their children all over this Bible. And the thing you've got to ask yourself when you're talking about your God or your Saviour, ask yourself this one question. I'd like you to really be serious about it. Has anybody ever killed in the name of your God? So therefore you have to question the God you serve, because I'm listening to people, I'm saying, well, your God's racist.
Long day.
So your God that's coming back, who your Saviour ain't coming for me. And then you've got that.
You know the Muslims get so vexed when they hear you say Allah Akbar as well. In the name of Allah.
Yeah.
Or Allah willing. God willing.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Mashallah.
Why? Because they think you're taking it in vain.
They think that you're being disrespectful, or you're trying to say that you're... Like, you know how everyone was taking the piss out of Bin Laden and saying Allah Akbar, and everyone used to get scared and think a bomb thing was going to happen.
Ignorance. Yeah.
But you see if, like, oh no, Muslim or somebody else, or a Jew, or someone said, oh, Jesus. But I just said it. It's not seen as an offence. It's just like, oh, we can take the piss out of it.
The Christians, for sure.
Yes. Which is kind of valid, because at the end of the day, that whole religion itself is not what it's perceived to be.
Well, most Christians don't know that most wars were started or continued in the name of their Christian God. Most Christians don't know that a lot of their religion is pagan.
Yeah.
And I will prove that today as well. Most Christians who say that they're loving and righteous have no idea that their religion was a conveyor for slavery.
Come on.
They deny it with all their might. Do you understand?
Yeah, it's true.
But when you go into history, well, we're going to show you today, that's what your Bible was created on. I mean, bossing people in their heads to convert. Now, if anybody has to get bossed in their head to convert to something, there's something wrong.
Yeah, that's wild.
So when I get mad or have a bit of angst, it's towards those bad breath in the van, cheap perfume, smelling like chicken, fish, and underneath, yeah, I said it, is for you. Because the last time I looked, it said that no man was without sin.
Oh,
and if you were that holy, why did you not ascend like Elijah?
Please.
Why are you still here? I ain't got time for these people at all, you know, I'm telling you straight. Because most of you have never even looked into your Bible. You just filled up with ego and zeal. But so was King James and all his brethren, and went around chopping off people's heads in the name of God.
You know what, as well? You see, with people who have near-death experiences and they go and see heaven and hell, some people, they don't believe in anything and have those experiences and say, like, I saw God, I saw the devil, whatever. But mostly they are Christians. And you have to question, why are so many of them having these experiences? You know what I mean?
Because, well, I believe them. When people
no,
go,
I believe it.
No, I know what you're saying. Go, carry on.
Okay, like, I barely hear Muslims saying, "Oh, I had a near-death experience."
You do, and then they convert to Christianity. I've heard a lot of them say it. Okay. I heard a lot of them say it. And see, you know me, I'm very much into all of that as well. I want to know, what did you see? But everybody sees different things.
But if it's bad and satanic, why are you, like, what draws you, or what makes you think this is where I should go? Like, if the religion...
You mean to say, like, say that again so I can understand what you mean.
From what we have looked at and researched and talked about over a lot of our videos, you can see how the white masters have used our book of spirituality and created things for themselves so that they can attain power, etc.
Right. Well, we've been shown that if you go back and look at all of our inserts, you will see that. That's all I'm going to say. Go back. If you've watched our videos before, next time go back and read the inserts. Go on.
Well, if you're having these experiences and you're seeing God and you're seeing the devil, etc., how do you know that this is the right thing to serve or go to? Because if you look at it from our perspective and what we've looked into, you can see there's something wrong.
But you see, one thing I will say, I agree with that, but one thing I will say is there's definitely truth in all of it.
No, definitely.
The thing that you have to comprehend is which part of it's true. And also, that's another question that I will pose to people, because I posed it to myself in all these years. Do you believe your powers that be want you to have the truth and be free?
That's what I'm saying.
Because
even you've mentioned before, what type of God do you have? If you have a punishment on earth and you're going through turmoil, then you go and have judgment day again with your God. And say, for instance, you made it by the hair on your skin into heaven, your God's gonna be talking to you and say, you didn't do right here, here, here. Now you have to bow to me for the whole of eternity. And he said that's quite narcissistic. So it's kind of like, what God are you meant to?
Who's your God?
Like serve.
And this is the thing, when you hear God, there are many gods. That's what Elohim means, small e. It means gods.
Everyone paints the devil out to be bad. I don't rep him, sorry. But he's kind of doing everyone a service. If you've been wicked on this earth, when you get to hell, you kind of have to repent. And that's a person that's giving you your judgment and telling you, like, you did really bad.
No, it's not telling you that. It's just like,
it's just torturing.
This is the thing, like, this is another thing. Since we talk about Jesus in the movies, if you watch, well, it backfired on me. I was trying to show my daughter, you're too interested in these dark things, man. You want to play with, you think you're bad. So I thought, let's see what Lucifer's about. It scared the heck out of her. It wasn't what I thought it was.
Love.
And that's another thing. When I was growing up, my granddad was a proper battle axe and serious in the church. And I remember there's one joke that people remember. They were going to the cinema and he said, if I find out anyone is going to the cinema and that was it, to the whining concerts, I will whine you on the bench. The bench was this bad place he put everybody, it's for everyone to see it. Just anyway. But what I'm saying is, as far as I'm concerned, Christians are the most scared people on the planet.
Yeah.
You are doused in fear. And so I'm saying that because some of these programs, right, and programming, and we know it's a bag of nonsense, and we don't have a telly in the house, but we do have mobile devices.
Please.
And so if you go on Netflix, there's a show called Lucifer, and you think, but it's not what you think. And in these programs, you will find out what things actually mean.
Yeah.
And you're like,
they're always dropping. This is what I'm going to say.
Gosh.
You know, you always go to me, why are you always watching the movies and all mad things and this, that, the other? But there's so many gems in these programs.
They break it down in an entertaining way. Right. But you don't know.
Think, this is a myth. It's
not. They
facts.
Break it down in all these programs and all these movies for you. And really, if you watch them alongside what you're learning, it clicks and you go, oh my gosh. And one of the Lucifer, in one episode, because when he gets mad, he says he doesn't just go around troubling people. He likes to give bad people the reward they deserve.
Exactly.
So when he gets mad, he sees horns, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This sounds very, but it's actually, it's really more of a series. It's not even what you think it is. But in another episode, he finds himself in the desert, and all of a sudden he's got wings. He says, why have I got wings? And he chops them off, keeps chopping them off, right?
That makes sense.
Because he says, what he says in all of this is, his mom turns up, right? And he says, she got kicked out of heaven. And he says, she goes, I've got to bring you back. And she says, he goes, I'm not coming to heaven. Because heaven to you and Dad is a hell to me.
Where do I begin? With the grandest fall in the history of time? Or perhaps the far more agonizing punishment to follow? Blamed for every morsel of evil humanity's endured.
I'm not perfect enough. If you want me to do all these bad things to tell me I'm your perfect son.
Yeah.
But then you say the things I'm doing here in Los Angeles, and that's a whole another thing. Because when you go and look at the founding of Los Angeles, it all starts in history. Yeah. It all makes sense. All of this angels thing is not what you think it is as well. I'm not saying there's not other beings.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's not giants. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is people were calling themselves gods. Mm-hmm. For instance, King James the First, James the Sixth, James the First, same person.
Yeah.
Dad Zebedee, which also means Yahweh, so his dad is God. And so what would that make him? If King James's dad is God, what does that make him?
Jesus. Right.
And if Lucifer had horns one day and wings another, what does it make him? Both, innit? So what they're trying to show you is that you can be both.
But then, exactly, that's why you have the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other.
Right.
But it is the story of Judas.
Well, maybe this is a good place to start. Because some people say, oh, you're chatting heresies, what you talk about doesn't make sense. So there's a scripture that states that it says, I go from corruptible to incorruptible crown. You know, every Christian person will say.
So the crown of the glory, the crown of the life, the Aeonian life, is something that we are to pursue into according to our faith. It's the wrestle of the faithing, which the Apostle Paul uses the figure of a crown in conjunction with a race in a stadium.
Right then, let me tell you a story. King James has 2 sons. One of them is Charles I. His brother dies, he was sick. Okay? So the crown goes to Charles I. Now, to cut a long story short, he didn't care much for the government. He decided that he would make decisions based on what he thought. And he had one brethren that he let influence him. But this brethren was really about himself, right? And so based on what this friend told him to do, he made a lot of boo-boos. And there was, what he did is he married a queen who was a Protestant, which his people didn't like. He was captured a few times and housed as prisoner because basically he was for the people more than for what the council said, and they didn't like that.
Okay.
Right? And so he was cast as a he felt like his father that he was God on earth, and he had the divine right to rule the whole entire earth. He was God on earth, right?
Just you.
So he didn't listen. He was full of ego. Okay, but he did some good things because he took the power away from the government to just keep taxing people and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So they say he was for the people. Long story short, he promised to change and do such a, but he was lying. Somebody got wind of it, and so they said, right,
Banish.
we're gonna kill you. We'll do a little conversation, yeah, we'll put you to death. So he was apparently very noble about it from beginning to end, right? And then when he gets upon it wouldn't say he was beheaded outside. Is it outside Westminster? What we call Westminster now?
London.
What he says when he is about to be crucified.
His words would only fall upon the ears of his executioners and the soldiers around him. He said, I go from a corruptible to an incorruptible crown, where no disturbance can be. He asked his executioner if his hair was troubling him. His executioner said yes, and so Charles placed a nightcap upon his head. His executioner helped to tuck the hair away. He told his executioner that he would say his last prayers, and when he stretched out his arms, he was ready to die.
So, did Jesus say that, or did Charles I? And this is what I'm trying to say. Who are we serving? Who is your God, and who is your Jesus, and who is your Saviour?
And you know what? In Avengers, there's a scene where Chris Pratt, I don't know who he's holding. I can't remember who he's holding, but he says, someone's speaking to him and says, who's your master?
Right.
And he goes,
Let me ask you this one time. What master do you serve? What master do I serve? What am I supposed to say, Jesus?
Avengers, people are talking and saying like they're trying to be anti-Christ and get your children to move away from religion or God.
They're telling them to do it.
That's what people are getting from watching Avengers.
Right.
And then Thanos also says in the movie,
I am inevitable.
he clicks his finger and that basically makes everyone disappear when he collects all the gems off each.
But you know that Thor, you know that all of this Bible stuff is also connected to Nord. Would you call it Nord? Is that what it's called? Well, ancient, if you want to call it, German myths. And Thor is apparently in all of that Jesus. And
Zeus.
Odin is the god of all of them, and he has a bag of baby mums. Yeah,
Stop it.
that he has children with, and they were warring against each other. But the story is very, very similar to the one with King James. But Odin is swarthy and black. It says.
Who's Odin?
Well, don't anyway.
Please.
But Thor is all in that folklore as well. Yeah. So this is what I'm trying to say to you, and it's North German folklore. We've spoken about witch Germans before, haven't we?
Yeah, blacks.
Now, you know. Actually, the other thing, Niflheim, like the Nephilim giants, right? Apparently, is part of the German folklore as well.
And you know what, Thanos in the movie, I can't remember if you've seen it, but he's a giant, like he's huge and purple.
Well, do you remember when we did our video, Who's Kane? And we were looking at the maps? Well, there's a guy called, I'm sure he's in the folklore as well, I've just remembered, Matthias. See, what they do in this folklore is they drop people in there. And how many times have we looked up art and other things where it says ancient? When you look at the date, it's 1800s.
Yeah.
So when you're saying ancient, thinking it was 2 BC, but remember this Gregorian map is bamboozling everybody with all these different dates when there's the same time period.
And you know, remember when everyone was scared of 2012 and we were like, oh, the world's going to end 12.
When I was married to your dad, we were preparing for that in the millennium, 1999. Stack up all your cupboards and yeah.
No, but this is the thing. Every generation, every couple of years, or 20 years, they're always doing like a cleanse or saying, oh, a new thing's going to come out. We're all going to get wiped out.
By eliminating half of life, the other half will thrive. But you've shown me that's impossible. And as long as there are those that remember what was, there will always be those that are unable to accept what can be.
They will resist.
We're forgetting that in lockdown, there was a whole Hiroshima again.
Yep, we're all kinds of stubborn. I'm thankful. Because now, I know what I must do. I will shred this universe down to its last atom.
What?
Don't you remember the girl? She was on a wedding day and...
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And everyone just goes back to normal, but they're always doing something to wipe us out or desensitize us.
Well, they do say
how
that...
How far they're going to push it and you're still not awake by now?
And then, with the stones you've collected for me, create a new one, teeming with life, that knows not what it has lost, but only what it has been given.
Well, they do say that there is an actual... How can I say this? A thing that happens. It's a spiritual thing that does come and wipe people out. And these people know it. Here's the thing. If you don't believe in religion, then at least look at the CERN. Why is CERN opening portals?
Please.
If and none of this stuff is real.
The portals have been put into Star Trek, Star Wars, all these programs. And then this is what I hate about people when they say, oh, I don't believe in aliens, I don't believe in this and that, I don't believe in UFOs. I'm like, if we are in the universe is basically like a speck in the metaverse. How are you going to say there's not other beings and there's other planets anyway in our solar system? So for you to be so stupid, we're the only beings here when there's 10 million planets, 10 million solar systems. The Milky Way itself it's not just one Milky Way. There's multiple galaxies. Shut up. I don't care.
Well, you saying that brings me to this next Jesus, right? Now, like I've said, a lot of people don't want to accept that Christianity and religions in general are the vehicle for slavery. Is the vehicle for all these religions, right? Okay, let me read something. Geronimo Boscana. I've mentioned this to people. I'm going to speak to you about it on here. Now, was an early 19th century Franciscan missionary in Spanish Las Californias and Mexican Alta California. He is noted for producing the most detailed ethnographic picture of a native Californian culture to come out of the missionary period. An account that for his time and profession is liberal and enlightened. Okay, now, I'm going to give you some background. What he was doing was converting Indians to the religion. But before he did that, there was like a census that went round that basically made these missionaries have to study the Indians, right? And in studying them, because the mission was to convert them, they had to learn their practices. Yeah. And what I will tell you that this missionary called himself, and I'm quite sure.
Remember what they said in the first video, that we did about the Indians, how they tried to turn us savages, and we didn't take.
That's right, yeah.
You gotta give it to the washed out Indians.
Right. Well, by this time, because this is another thing I want to stipulate, because people like to say, oh, the native Indians, but they don't understand what native means. Native, we mentioned it when all the Europeans, you saw all the white Europeans flooding into America. And eventually they stopped calling themselves foreigners and immigrants, and as they settled, they began to call themselves natives. So native does not necessarily mean that you are directly from America or / original Aboriginal India, if you want to call it that, right?
That's true.
So when you're saying you're a native, you could be mixed Indian, already American Indian, which is mixed race. We've already shown you that. We've shown you footage in the 1800s of Indians who look like me and Eden. For real.
Reservations that you've approved, you, sir, in your great wisdom have approved. I will tell you right now, they don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like the Indians. Now, maybe we say politically correct or not politically correct. They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. And a lot of people are laughing at it, and you're telling how tough it is, how rough it is to get approved. Well, you go up to Connecticut, and you look. Now, they don't look like Indians to me, sir.
And so, what I'm saying is, so you could be mixed, as in American Indian, mixed race, and then you could be Italian. Yeah. Or you could be Spanish from Europe, white. Or you could be Portuguese, mixed with Indian and white and something else. So when you're calling yourself natives, you have to understand that this slavery thing, it didn't just happen overnight. There was a whole process. There was befriending. There was marrying into that we showed you with the Hawaiian families, royalty. There was, giving them away some of their women to the English travellers, European, and not all Europeans were white. There's one thing we need to always stipulate now. We know not all Europeans are white. Anywho,
you know what? I have Hawaiian friends in America. Who live there. They're from there, and people would look at them and say, "Oh, you're not Hawaiian," but they're the originals. Yeah, proper black.
Yeah, because people are brainwashed, right? So, what was my point? So what I'm saying to you is that, okay, you've got the Indian who, through sanctum, ventrum. The next thing is you're gone.
Every single
time. I always forget. But through that allowed Europeans, well, I'm just going to say white Europeans, to rape black Indians and create children, right? And not make claims to the child. Yeah. And then that law was taken to the UK. So then also you got to say then, and we know this because we read it in our last video, there was slavery going on in Europe with blacks, all types of blacks from different parts of Europe. So they were probably, if the law went there, then they must have been doing the same thing there. Yeah. Think about it, right? Which is why when some people escaped, the exodus, right, to South Africa and other places, there were mixed race children, right? I'm not sure. I'm not saying that none of those relationships were relationships that were already happening, but
that's why some of them speak the original language, like Afrikaans, and then there's some that obviously have the new improved South African language.
Right, and that's a fact, because every time they converted the Indians, they changed the language. That's where this whole thing about when it talks about God confused the language. Well, they called themselves gods.
Swahili as well.
Right. So, anywho, so when you say you're native, it means you are related to the indigenous. It doesn't mean you are indigenous. Because I'm sorry, but I'm not letting people take my stuff anymore. Because everybody's just out here skinning teeth like it's the game
it's
too.
in the name Aboriginal. Right. Original is just there, like
not doing it. And also, what I'm trying to say is our stories are interlinked. You can't be a native without first have been Aboriginal. There was a whole process. So if it was hard for you, then was it hard for the Aboriginal people? And we didn't disappear. Yes, a lot of us were killed off of all different complexions, but we didn't disappear. We were just moved out, and then they moved the new improved Indian in, and then some of it was forced. Some of it was forced. Some of it was forced, right? And then gave them hush money, hush rights, I call it. Yeah.
So,
right.
You know, in Avengers, if you still haven't seen it, it's been 3 years ago, but
I don't think I've watched it yet, or maybe I haven't. Can't remember.
There's a moment where Thanos like clicks, and it wipes out everything.
Daughter.
And he goes into like a realm where it's empty. It's very peaceful. It's red first. It's like red and misted. And then he's walking on water, and he goes to this, like, you know when you go to like Japan or China and they have those kind of wooden temple, fixtures.
Did you do it?
Yes.
What did it cost?
Everything.
There's a lot of symbolism that's going on because he had to wipe out the whole of the universe to get a new creation. And then his daughter, who's Zoe Saldana, she's like black, Latino, innit? The fact that they're using her as the child as well as a black, you're using that for a reason.
Everything's for a reason.
And he's a white man, he's a white actor, although he's purple. It could be like a yes. You know what I mean?
You know, they never like to fully give you, and that's another thing when you watch Lucifer. He's got a brother called Amenadiel, and they sit down.
So you're brothers.
Unfortunately. And we're having a terrible time working together, but because you've been so helpful with me, Linda, hopefully you can help fix our problems.
Even in these problems, they're trying to show you it was never just this black and white thing. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, and I'll come back to Geronimo. On that, when we said who is Cain, we showed the map, and around the map there were white giants. We didn't know there were giants, but now I know them. They must be that were cutting off people. So they were eating people. Remember, the hair was really, really, really white. Do you remember? And they were really, really, really red. Right, white but to pink. Indian. Well, I won't call it folklore. Some people might call it that, but they are adamant that there used to be giants in the caves in America, and people knew they were there, and they were very aggressive. They had bad, nasty sexual habits, apparently. And they may have been the ones that took daughters.
But Mum, don't you remember that thing in one of our previous videos that we did? And it had the big head aliens, and then there was another, I don't know what species, and they looked like pigs, and they were white.
What was that?
And pink. Remember?
On what?
What is it called? forgot what it's called, but the brother, he was jealous of, I don't know if it was his brother-in-law or something. Don't you remember the African, or the from Egypt, they had the big massive heads.
Oh,
And oh
you
man,
have to put it in.
I'll show you.
Right.
But go on our channel and look at it.
What, we've put it in a video?
Yes, there was one with cone heads, the ones with the big dirty stinking mega mind head tops, and then the other piggy things, and they were put in the caves as well, and they were pink and looked like gremlins.
I don't remember, but what I'm saying is, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to outrule. What I'm trying to say, and I've always said this, we have the truth with the face of a lie on it, and we're venerating people and calling them gods. We don't know that we're giving our worship and praises to lords, as in Lord Donby's son, which is King James, and Lord Dolby is Zebedee, and Zebedee is Yahweh. These people were calling themselves God. People were venerating, just like in India, or as in America, they also venerated people there, right? Which brings me back to this person, Geronimo. So what I wanted to say was, they were beating Indians into submission. If you go and read up on it, you will see it with your own eyes. They were beating them. And just like the natives talk about now, they took the children, and I've told you before, from their parents, and then they would basically indoctrinate them. They would put them in a school, but not a school where you come home after school. They would, sometimes some of them would die there.
Stop it.
Right, and their parents wouldn't know what happened to them, right? To indoctrinate them, because what they were trying to do, as we've already showed you with the book by Gregory Abablasky, is they were trying to make the Indian white. Now, what is the quickest way to kill a culture? You kill the people, not just their customs.
This is what Thanos said.
Right.
Like, you people aren't grateful, and even though I've wiped out half of the world for you to have a beautiful creation.
So, and how is that story not the same as the story as James the Great, James the Greater, King James? When you read all the literature, it says the exact same thing.
And you know what? The three superheroes that had to fight in Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America.
I'm not saying anything. All I can say is, people that are not into their history, you haven't, what do we always say? Join the dots. Join the dots. So anywho, so when I'm saying it's a process, that they impregnated these black women, they befriended some of them, maybe some of them, I do have white men that actually did love these women and were murdered for marrying Indians. I have them. Yes, nigger lovers, I do have them. What it says, well, let me read something to you. So it says, these people were called the Juanos. Sounds like Jew, doesn't it? Right, Juanos, right? And the Lusuanos to the south. Their trade extended to the Colorado River and included slavery, as in the missionaries, right? The lives of the Tongva were governed, that's what the people are called, by a set of religious and cultural practices that included belief in creative supernatural forces. They worshipped Chiganigix, a creator god, and Chukit, a female virgin god. Hear the story again.
Please, Mary.
Their great mourning ceremony was based on a belief in an afterlife. In a purification ritual, they drank talagush, a hallucinogenic made from ginseng weed and salt water. Their language was called Kis and Kish.
And you could see that this was a sacred cactus. And they knew they used it in ceremony, and it had powerful effects on the mind. And so in order to save it, they actually decided to give it another name. A Christian name. Exactly. So San Pedro, as you know, is St. Peter, who holds the keys to the gates of heaven.
And they practiced cremation.
The earth is called Ki.
Right. But here's what I want to say. Key again, yeah. Here's what I want to say. We're told that drugs are bad. But what I'm trying to say to you is that people like Geronimo were watching them. He called himself a pygmy in front of them and bowed to them. And they went into tombs and learned what was going on. This is what it says, right? And he says Geronimo called himself a scribe. So when we talk about the scribe and the Pharisees.
When the conquistadors get to the Americas in 1492, they were of course Catholics, and they find a people who practiced very different religions than they were familiar with. They found natives who were using Wachuma, or San Pedro, and peyote as part of their religious worship. People reported once they ingested these cacti, they saw God, they visited God. It made it a very powerful sacrament, and therefore a very threatening one. You render the priesthood superfluous if everybody can talk to God on their own.
It's all there? Okay. Well, it goes on.
The Spanish tried to suppress its use and indeed wipe it out. The drug war, which I sometimes like to call the war on certain plants, really begins back then. In 1620, when the Mexican Inquisition declared peyote a heretical perversity, opposed to the purity and integrity of our holy Catholic faith. There was a list of questions you would use to interrogate a native, and one was, do you consume the evil peyote? The diabolical root.
The Takic mythology, which is also these people, is known only fragmentally. As these people were Christianized early by Spanish missionaries during the late 18th to early 19th centuries, only sparse material has been collected by ethnologists from few remaining native speakers during the 19th century. Chiganikanich has variously been represented as a creator deity, a culture hero, a lawgiver, figure or prophet who became associated with the figure of Christ after the conversion of the Takic peoples. So once again, who's your Jesus?
It's a long day, man.
You see, people think I'm being disrespectful, and I'm not. There's also another book, and it's called Life in California, drawing a residence of several years in that territory, compromising a description of titles of the country and the missionary establishments, incidents, observations, etc., etc., illustrated by numerous engravings. So there's pictures as well. And what I'm saying is, they also called him Tobit, but then also there's a picture, and all of this information is available. This is another thing that really aggravates me, in Malky Museum. And it says, this mission of the Malky Museum Incorporated is to promote scholarship and cultural awareness and to encourage preservation of Southern Californian Indian. But you're not even being honest about who the Indian is, right? And it says as well, in brackets, as other Indians, as in the rest of them that believe they were here first, right? Having historical and cultural ties to the Southern California for future generations. The museum collections and display artifacts and historical materials of Indians of the San Gorgonio Pass area, and act as a common meeting ground for natives and non-natives to learn about the past. So, since this information is available, why is it that we don't know?
Well, why are we still arguing about this if it's right there?
Right, and this is another thing. I watched a channel where this guy was taken on a little voyage. It was supposed to be a little secret thing down the secret alleyways and passages to see the original Bible. Now my argument's this, and it was in Africa, right? Why, if we have the original Bible, are we still here arguing?
That's what I'm saying.
There's something wrong with what's going on. Now you might say because you got to protect it and but surely everybody would be acting right if you had this Bible. Okay. So that's another book that you can read to find out more about this original Christ.
You know what I've always thought about as well? You see how the Jews have that Mecca in it, the black box?
Yeah.
Like, where did that originate from?
Well, a lot of them are now beginning to say that it's witchcraft. I know a bit about that, but I shan't talk about it right now.
You know you have like Pandora's box as well.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say. that a lot of people are saying there's a lot of witchcraft going on. A lot of witchcraft. Norse mythology, that's what I wanted to call it. One more book from this Malki Museum, and it's called Notes on Historical Jueno Villages and Geographical Features. You can find it on Gestor, JSTOR. I've told you about that before, so I'm not looking at you. Look at that picture and tell me. I looked at this picture and it's blurred. This is an Aboriginal Californian. Why is it blurred out? Tell me that does not look like most little black boys you see. How black is this brother? So what gets me is that a lot of these natives have our information. You're reading it, you know full well who we are, and you're still denying it.
Yeah. Cognitive dissonance.
Now, what I will say about there is something I need to show you. It also calls what's his name, Geronimo, a holy father. So when we're saying holy father as well, that's another thing. We are venerating people again. We think we're venerating this God in the sky.
No.
You're not. You're venerating people all the time.
You could be a father that's holy. That doesn't mean you are.
And what I mean,
beginning and end.
and how can you call them holy? Call them holy when they were doing okay. For instance,
heinous things.
Right. On page 124, right, of this book, it says, San Juan Capistrano mission between May 17th, 1812 and February 4th, 1826. The next thing, they've got dates. So when people are trying to say all this stuff is not real, like, okay, you can't find dates, all these things in the Bible. If you just read the thing properly and read these things, you can match it up. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fray Boscana became intensely inquisitive about the Juano Indians, a group sandwiched between the Gabrielons to the immediate north and the Luisonos to the south. His religious fervour motivated his desire to decipher their forms of religion, symbolism and iconography with an eye to adapting them to Christian teachings. All I'm saying is go and read this stuff.
Who is your God?
Go and read this stuff and put this up and go and actually read it yourself here. Another thing it says about them, let's see if I can find it.
Stop.
Okay, so on page 130 of this same book, right, it says, no information is found as to where these people of California may have come from, because there's a certain amount of mystery about them. And you know that the manuscript about them, it even says it in here, they went on a treasure hunt for it to this day. So it talks about lost scrolls. This is one of them. Because whatever practices they had, because they had ceremonies and all sorts, and they would, when boys and girls turned to the age of 11, they would teach them. But it also says not everybody in the tribe was privy to the information. Yeah. So when everybody's saying we the Jews, just remember, if you've been paying attention to all of the tribes we've been showing you in America, they all believe different things. And that thing about cremation, because we've been involved in funerals recently, where the big argument till they almost mashed up everything was about cremating, right? But one thing about these tribes is they believed, when we spoke about what was the king, the Hawaiian king, Kamehameha, I've forgotten his name, the last video. He said to his best friend, bury me somewhere where the people, the Europeans and them can't find me, because they believed there was mana, power in their bones. And so it made me actually think that this is perhaps why they cremated, so you couldn't hold on to the power. You know, we say, you know, it's a bad thing, but maybe it's not. And also, it made me also think that perhaps why we're buried is so that they can keep us and our ancestors and our power. So they've got power over us always. Even in death, they've got power. Right, okay.
You go and spread the ashes, the spirit can go away.
Leave. Okay. So it says, yeah, no information was found where these people of California may have come from. It is necessary for us to walk blindly, travelling to and fro with closed eyes after the truth. See, everyone wants the truth. Mm-hmm. And perchance not looking at the door for a long interval. Inasmuch this chapter is by way of conjecture, if I err in this undertaking, it is not through will and caprice. Anyway, let me summarize. So, the part, and it says, chapter 4 mentions Deuteronomy, and chapter 8 inserts Adam in brackets. It cannot be denied that these Indians, like all the human race, are the descendants of Adam. So, you know, it's giving you a lot of conversations that we have about the Bible. There's another part here, and it says, okay.
But then, isn't that the Muslims thing, Adam?
It's the Christian thing as well, but you got to understand that we're all arguing about the same thing. We're all arguing about the same thing. It just depends on which tribe and which people hold the power of religion. Remember the picture of St. James with the sword to the Moor's head. Now, it says actually, so he had a fight with the other Scottish who were dark. They said they were very of dark side. And actually, Game of Thrones, the new one apparently, is about it. And it's got the most views out of all of them.
Okay.
Right? And that family, who are the same, what's his name? Black Douglas. Apparently, they're the rightful divine heirs
to the throne.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything else. Okay, so it says, and whereas Harrington in the chapter title Temple Vanquez refers to the devil, Robinson calls him Satanic Majesty, and chapter 3 designates Huit, which is another name for Chiganix. He's got a few names: Tober, Chiganix, and Uit, yeah, a figure later transformed into Chiganix, there you go, as a monster. In other words, Robinson's text is more culturally and religiously charged, at times falling prey to hyperbole, with which to rebuff Gireno belief. So, one thing about they say about Geronimo Boscana is that he gave a very honest, unfiltered, not biased account of the practices of these people, whereas some other authors after him, they put all of their racism onto it, call them monsters and all this different type of thing, because of whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that once you start reading, you realise that a lot of the things that we say are infallible word of God. You see that statement makes that's in the Bible in Genesis, and it talks about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Mm-hmm. Now it says with these Indians, everything was orally passed on. Mm-hmm. There was no books. There was no.
Yeah.
So could you look at it in that sense? We already know they said they used what the Indians had. It says it here to adapt to Christianity, to convert them.
But
so if it was infallible in the very beginning, why did you do that?
We have to ruin anything that comes from us. You know.
All I know is this one thing.
Because even the Indians are practices that we speak to the ancestors for it to rain, or for us to get, let's say for instance, food. What was that story?
Well, what actually you saying that? Sorry to interject.
No, carry on.
But when you go on even the Wikipedia and look up Geronimo Boscana, it says when they were beating them to force them to become Christians, it said before that their ceremonies and their practices would keep them strong and well, and they weren't allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah.
So if their practices are so evil, they're pagan, they're all these things, and then they weren't allowed to do it anymore, and then these missionaries were learning it, if they caught them practicing it, they would bust them up or kill them. But they were allowed to do it. Then is it evil?
Yeah, exactly. How are you gonna?
And then they lost all their power. Okay, so we're all trying to get ready for this coming back of the King, and every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. But which Lord is it, and which Jesus is it? Who is it? Like, who are you prepared? Because it already says there'll be somebody that comes and everybody's all fooled, and we think because they're showing signs and wonders. So how do you know that that's not the Jesus they're bringing you?
Please.
And also what it shows me is they took away the direct capacity to connect to God individually as each person, and they made it so that you could only go through these same missionaries that was brooking them up to get to God.
Church.
What was you going to say? Do you remember?
No, but
sorry.
We have like fire. We worship the sun. No, we do the dances, rain dance, and then it rains. And a lot of them will say, like, even in movies, they'll be like, our ancestor, this, da, we call on him for something. And then a herd of sheep start running through the place. And a lot of, you know what, I can't stand, like, some of the old school movies where there'll be like cowboys and Indians. But how the Indians are always depicted are not necessarily savages, but you see if a cowboy goes into like unmarked territory and the Indians are there, it's like a standoff, like they're always scared because regardless of if they have guns and pistols and dynamite, the Indians always have something else, whether it's a supernatural energy or I don't know, like we're very tactical or have the skills of nature to kill you off. We're like,
well, that's how the Haitians won their revolution. They used all of that, and murked off the people. Then
that is the thing.
So is it bad? Because if they were there learning it. You know, you see, here's another thing. They talk about the iconography and all of that stuff they were learning. So all the cross, which we know means earth, wind and fire. Sorry to every Christian, but that's what it means. So you learned it and changed it into something else. The same with the swastika, which it means to know all. It's about knowledge.
Even the elements, you see, they took that as well. Like in the Victorian times, they took it and they said, oh, if you're ill, let's say for instance, the opposite would be to have pepper or something. They took all of those practices from us and came with herbal remedies, but really we originated that. If we're in the trees all the time and we're in the forest and wherever, and we have to, like, this is, I saw in one movie as well, one old school 1950s movie, and the cowboys must have came and they saw all the Indians on the hill in the desert, and they were like, we're really thirsty, like, where'd you get water from? They didn't do a rain dance, but they must have got...
He talks about them needing the Indians close to them in reservations to show them and get them...
This is what they
talks about it.
This is what they had to do to get them to give them water and a home, and they have to ask in a certain way, is it safe for us? Can we come in peace? But really, they have ulterior motives. Or they ask the Indians to come and help them to fight a war. And then the Indians get killed off, and then it's just like, oh, cowboys are heroes, but really, they're just causing a lot of massacres.
Well, there's a special Indian that they love celebrating, calling the king, and he was part of the Indian Wars as well. But which side was he fighting on? We'll put him up. I'm sure you'll recognise him. You know, there's a lot of lies being told, and I think people are so stuck in, oh, it's mysterious. No, it's not. You just won't open your eyes. You don't want to admit that you're full of pomp and pride. You don't want to admit that you're racist. You don't want to admit where you come from. You don't want to admit who you give reverence to. You don't want to admit who you're worshipping. It's all cognitive dissonance.
No, it is.
Absolute nonsense. And I'm not, like I've said to you already, you know me. I already know from many decades ago, people are coming to Earth. They are. I don't feel a way to say it. I'm already weird. So that's already going to happen. But what I'm trying to say is...
And time travel exists.
Right, that's the next thing in it. Oh, Lord. Anyway. I mean, they're saying now that Tesla was actually not a hero. That, what was her name? Mother Teresa, she wasn't a hero. They're calling them villains now. Do you see, a lot of things that we and people we've been putting on pedestals and calling them martyrs.
They're not. They're a martyr in someone else's story. The end.
See you later.
Oh, when may a starting board is mine? Never read anything about the Christ of power. Mount can shut off Adriel's power, make him vulnerable. I'm sorry, but does this mean that Jesus was